Hi darlings, and welcome back to my makeup garden. It's Liz. So we're going to do an eyeshadow declutter today. Well, I am. Grab a snack, grab a drink. It's going to be a long one. I'm going to try to go alphabetically. Not by palette, but by brand. So that I at least can, stay somewhat organized. Now, the things that I declutter, some of it I might hang on to it for a little bit if I have a question about it, like a maybe pile. But for the most part, it's going to go to friends and family, and then that's going to be it. So please don't comment and make it weird. Let's not make it weird, right? Okay, cool. I have to say that because it always ends up happening, and I'm sorry if I don't know you like that. But anyway, let's get into the declutter. I think the first brand that alphabetically going is Ace Beauté. So we're going to start here with what's on top, and this is the Serenity eyeshadow palette. Now, Ace Beauté is currently going through a rebrand again. I really hope they're redoing their formulas, that kind of thing. My husband actually got me this palette for Christmas, I think it was. And it's a very neutral, it kind of reminds me of one of the ABH palettes. You'll have to let me know which one it is. I think it's one of the Modern Renaissance ones, but I'm going to pass this on. I don't know that I've ever used this. Maybe once. Yeah, maybe once. It's not my bag. I'm not a super neutral queen, and I have all of these colors in other palettes that I like, in formulas that I like better. So I am going to declutter this one. Now, I don't know how many palettes I have right now. I will put a counter right here in the bottom of the corner so that that's there. So now you know, even though I don't know yet, but I will know, I guess, eventually. So, one gone, goodbye. I don't need you anymore. Okay, the second one is going to be the Aura palette, or Envy palette here. In theory, this should be a palette that I would absolutely love. It should be a palette that I absolutely love. However, there are some colors in here that I found very difficult to build up. This green was awful. This is probably the worst green in my collection, and that is saying something. The shimmers for this are really pretty. I just wish the mattes were better. Like the shimmers, you can see how pretty they are, very reflective, and they're very pretty, but not enough for me to keep this entire palette, especially since I'm so discouraged from using it because I get really frustrated with the mattes in this. All of the mid-tone to dark mattes for Ace Beauté, give or take a couple of shades, I struggle with. I don't know if I think these are their newer formula, or the newer, not the newest, I guess, but I just found this to be disappointing. Okay. The third one is the Aura palette, and again, gorgeous. Oop, I almost dropped it. And I made everything wobble. Well, it wouldn't be a Liz video without that. So, gorgeous color story. Again, the shimmers, especially this one, pretty. It's a really interesting, antique-y kind of a gold. But I just found them really difficult to use. And these are not magnetic. If they were magnetic, I would probably pick and choose the shades that were good. But this is just, it's not it for me. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of it. Okay. This is a palette that I would actually like to use more. It's actually their older formula, which I don't have a problem with their older formula. I did have a problem with that release. So I don't know if there's something different with that. Every time I've used the tropical palette, and this is the older formula version, I've not had an issue with this. So I am going to hang on to this for a little while longer. I really like these kind of grungy, swampy greens. And I think that it's worth hanging on to. I would not, if they come out with a really beautiful formula moving forward, this would be one of those that I would be interested in picking up in the new formula. So, but I do like this palette, and I am going to hang on to it. So I'm just going to set this back down over here. And the last but not least is the Paletteopoly palette. So if you remember, this came out with a collection with games and stuff, and with a game. It was a board game that went hand in hand with this palette. There's something about this palette that's just really good. And I'm seeing similar type shades to the Envy palette and to the Aura palette, actually. So I'm really happy that I'm actually going to hang on to this. This has always performed really well for me. And I'm happy to have it stay in my collection. It is getting older, but as long as it continues to perform well, I don't care. I'm not somebody who's just going to throw it away at a year because that's the suggestion. I'm not doing that. You do what's best for you, but I'm going to hang on to it as long as I feel like. So, but this is really pretty. This is a Palettopoly. I bought it when it was half off. I did not pay full price for it, but it's been really worth it for me. Okay, so who is next? I think Adept is next alphabetically. So let's go through that. We're just going to basically review these because I'm not willing to get rid of any of my Adept ones right now. One, they're too expensive for me to want to just throw them away like that. And two, I have thoughts on them, but there are shades in each one that I really like. So I don't really want to get rid of any of them. Make sense? Okay. So the first one, I've only used a couple of times actually. And that's this one. It doesn't even look used. So this is the Flying Fiddles palette here. It's got this lacy front. And then here's the color story. Now, Adept's palettes are magnetic. So if you want to customize them and kind of mix and match shades, you can. But this is just a really pretty neutral palette. It's very earthy, very neutral. It's just pretty. And yeah, that's going to be a trend moving forward is with Adept is it's just pretty. All right, next is actually one of my favorite palettes in my collection, surprisingly. It's also the first palette that I got from Adept. And it's actually the Heather Austin palette. So this is the palette that really kind of introduced me to her content. I had no idea who she was before Adept collabed with her. And I know she is a popular creator. I just didn't know who she was. So this is the palette that she curated with Adept. This remains one of my favorite palettes, color story wise and shimmer wise. It's just a really beautiful palette. This at some point will probably be a panning project. If I can ever finish my Unearthly leather and lace palette panning project, this will probably be a panning project. But yeah, that's here. I don't know if that's still available. They got rid of it and then brought it back and got rid of it and brought it back. It's just kind of one of those things. All right, next is the Plain Jane Remastered. It has this like shiny pink gold exterior. Now this has some, again, really pretty shimmers. In terms of Adept shimmers, are these the best? They're not the best Adept shimmers ever, but there are some that are just like really, really like just Adept does shimmers exceedingly well. If there's one area that Adept excels at, it is shimmers. So all right, we got the Adept Cosmetics. This is a Cyborg Choir palette. I did do a video on this, or a 3 looks video on this. I don't think that this is worth the money. And, you know, saying that, like, it's realistically, as much as I enjoy Adept, I really don't feel like this is worth the money. Now, I think it's very pretty. I think the hollow shades in here, you can see how shifty everything is. It's really beautiful. But in actually, like, having it and, like, the pigmentation of some of these, it's just like this. God, I had such high hopes for that color. It's such a gorgeous color. And it was just, you know, so. Okay, Sumerian Sunset. Again, it's one of those things like absolutely stunning color story, warm colors, beautiful. A couple of these, the ones that I wanted to see the most, I think so, what was it called? That yellowy orange, this one. Creases on me like a son bitch. It's beautiful on the inner corner, but this shade creases on me like a son bitch. So I do love this ombre packaging though. Oh, sexy. It is sexy. Okay, this was dropping things. All right, so this was a palette that came with the mystery box that they came out with. And this is the La Cienega palette. Now, this was like the introduction, I think, of more mattes in their palettes. To date, I think this remains the launch that has the most mattes, now that we talk about it. I do like this. Do I think it was, the box as a whole was disappointing, and I think that was the whole thing, but the palette did nothing wrong, and I've had no issues with the shades that are in here. I am going to hang on to it as well, and I think this shade is kind of unique in my collection. It's kind of like a cool tone, slatey, like blue. Again, not like the best Adept. Actually, I thought a couple of these were glitters when I did my video on this because they were so grainy. I thought they were glitters, and they're technically not, but that's technicality. I know there are a lot of rules when it comes to cosmetics, but if it feels like a glitter and it's chunky on the eyes and it's gritty, it's a fucking glitter. I don't care if it's plastic or if it's mica, it is glitter. And you don't have to agree, but that's my opinion. So, okay, next is Element 115. I think this color story is just, it's just so pretty. I find these shades right here, I don't want to mess them up. So I always feel the inclination to just kind of do this and just like use it that way so that you get the striping. And then you can like, actually we can just do that on the back of my hand. You can just smear it, you know, but it's very, very pretty. Expensive. This was a limited edition one and it was more expensive. The only reason I got this is because they sent me like a stupid coupon in my email that was like too good to pass up. It's like 30% off or something. And I was like, oh no, I'm going to buy it. I know myself, I'm going to buy it. So, all right. And the last Adept Cosmetics palette that I have here, I could have sworn I had one more. I don't know what I'm missing, but is this one. This is the Arrow palette that is not branded, you know, because you are not paying for the branding rights, but this is the Inspired palette, and this is inspired by the show Arrow. So the owner of Adept Cosmetics is a big sci-fi fan, a big like Marvel and comic book fan, and this was inspired by Arrow. So, yep, very pretty, lovely. I've only used this a handful of times, I'm not gonna lie, but the Adept palettes are just really pretty. Okay. So next we're going to move on to Artitude Cosmetics. I think this is going to be the last A palette that I have. And we're going to start with their newest release, which is the newest palette in my collection and something that arrived in the mail like yesterday. So this is the Metamorph palette here, like pretty artwork. Not sure if this is AI based off of somebody's picture. They did do like shoot a whole like photo shoot and all that, or if this is like artwork, but I don't care either way. I'm not gonna lie to you. Don't care either way. But this is so pretty. Clearly I have a type. I'm wearing similar type colors on my eyes right now. But this is their newest palette. So I have not used this. I have not swatched it, not done anything to it yet. Really pretty 16 pan, really dark. And they did send me a single shade in the box because apparently in manufacturing, this shade did not have the depth that they wanted when they received it. They put the wrong, the manufacturer put the wrong shade in there. So they sent me a single one and I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with it yet. I think this depth is fine for me. Maybe if you have a deeper skin tone, you would want that deeper color, but this is fine. As long as the shadow performs, I could care less. It's fine. Yeah, but very pretty. So that's the newest one. I will be filming with that soon and doing swatches and all that. I just have not done it yet because it came yesterday. So, okay. Artitude Cosmetics, this is the Abscission palette. This was their fall release last year. I think it was last year. It's a very pretty fall color story. And what I mean by that is greens and burgundies and a pop of plum and browns. It is very pretty. I'm not getting rid of this. I'm going to hang on to this. I'm weak for a 16 pan palette. That format, daddy, my favorite. So that's gonna fucking stick around. All right. And the last A palette is the Man Eater palette by Artitude as well. And this color story is so good to me. This is nigh perfect for me. I think if you pull this palette, it would be, I don't know, right? Just like that. Just maybe swap like that green, like that orange for that there. And then like, you know, I don't know. I feel like it's just beautiful. I really like it. I like it as is, but like, you know, I've gotten a lot of use out of this palette. I filmed multiple looks with it as well. It just remains one of my favorite palettes in my collection. Yeah, I know. Maybe I should do like a palette ranking in my collection, but I don't know. I just don't know if I'm committed enough for that. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. I think, let's see, Beauty Bay. I think we'll start with Beauty Bay because I have a lot of Beauty Bay in a stack. And then I think after that it's BH and then Blend Bunny, right? Trying to use my brain. I know it's hard sometimes. Okay, let's go through. Let's do this BH palette. This one I'm going to declutter. This is the Sunset Horizons palette. I've only used this a couple of times. And while I love Beauty Bay's formula, there's something about this that I'm just not reaching for. I would think that I would have used it. Oh, I missed an A palette. Let's hold on. Before we get fully into Beauty Bay, because it's going to be an undertaking, this is the Artemis palette by Alter Ego. This is a dupe for the Natasha Denona Metropolis palette. Every time I use this palette, I like the looks that I create, but I'm not going to hang on to this. I don't feel like the shimmers are particularly impactful. If you like subtle beauty, then this would probably be for you. It's getting older. I'm starting to get hard pans on some of the shades, and the shimmers are not like that impactful. And I don't really use these kind of shade coffee colors. I don't use them like that. So this can actually go away. This is, okay, goodbye. All right, let's take a sip, friends. Beverage drink. We got through one whole letter of the alphabet. Okay, let's go back to Sunset Horizons. So, by Beauty Bay. This palette, I got it. I used it a few times. I really was fixated on this color here. And part of me really just kind of wants to keep this palette for that shade alone. These are such unique kind of tones in my collection, which might be surprising, but like this just looks gray on me. And these yellows are fine, but I don't really need to keep this. I'm going to put this in the declutter pile. I might pop this shade out and just put it in a single pan, but I'm really awful about using my single shades. Every time I do that, I feel like I just ruin the palette, so maybe I won't, but yeah, that one can go away. All right, the next is a newer release from Beauty Bay. So this is the Reckless Romance palette. I'm not gonna lie to you, I think I used this once. I'm gonna hang on to it and would like to use it more. I think next year I'm gonna go on a low buy or almost no buy, just to give the palettes that I have some love. I am a collector and I'm also a makeup lover and a user and an attempted panner. I attempt to pan. I'm not committed to panning, but I do attempt. But this is a very pretty palette. I'm going to hang on to it because I just don't feel like I've given it the attention that it deserves yet. Okay, the next one is the Bright palette. This one here. And I feel like this is their older Bright palette. I think I could actually declutter this. So I picked this up, 16 pans. It's like my perfect color story. It's ridiculous. See, these are still very pretty. See how light that is? But I do feel like I have these shades in other palettes that I reach for more. So I think I could declutter this one. This one's barely used. I will give this probably to my neighbor because she is a little girl and she's big into eyeshadow. So I'm gonna go ahead and declutter this one. This is the Bright by Beauty Bay. Next is the Tropical palette here. This is also, I think this is their spring of last year launch. Beautiful color story, warm, very Key West flamingo beach vacation colors in my opinion, as someone who lives next to the beach. I'm going to hang on to this. I do like this a lot. Actually, this color especially is very fun. Okay, so now we're moving into some of their like themed color stories, not like their seasonal launches, but their theme ones. This is the Earthly palette here, Earthy palette. And this is what they came out with when they came out with their permanent line of palettes with Beauty Bay. And this is just like, I use these palettes that I have as an excuse not to get other palettes that are in the same family. So even if I didn't want to give away this, like, I think it was like between $12 and $15 when I bought it, not expensive. Between this palette and a couple of the others, I've used them as an excuse to not buy so many palettes, and I can't lose that excuse, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, love this color story. Very, very pretty. Doesn't have the love on it that it deserves. That's because I focused on the Wilderness palette, which is similar type greens, but yeah, gorge. Okay, so next is the Neutral palette here. This was one of their later ones, actually. It's surprising that they didn't really start with this, but beautiful. If you want a smoky eye, this is the palette, like an easy smoky eye, everyday makeup look. This is actually a really good palette for that. If you're a neutral makeup lover, it's called the Neutral palette for a reason. So, yep, keep. a color story that I like just a little smidge better is actually the Rich Rich palette here. These beautiful chocolate browns and pinks and so I like this color story a little bit better than the neutral one, but they're both worth having in my collection, and so I'm going to hang on to them. Okay. All right, another special edition from Beauty Bay was the Retro Love palette, and this kind of color story was really popular at the time. I think Martine Cosmetics also did a similar type vibe. Pops of blue, pink, purple, the seafoam green, sexy. So hang on, I'm going to hang on to this. It's beautiful. Oop, no issues. Gonna hang on to it. Okay, I think I could let the next one go. So this is Age of Opulence. This was around for a really long time, and I don't really reach for this. I think I saved this for this color and this color. There's something about those two together that are just A+. I really enjoy them. But yeah, I don't feel like I need to hang on to this anymore. I just want to see. It's just, I'm just gonna, this finger's gonna be covered in, like, it's just really pretty, but I do have similar type shades in my collection that I don't feel like I need to hang on to this any longer. So that one can go away. And it's also really old. It's like real old. So should I put it on my eyes? Probably not. Am I going to still do it? Probably. Okay. Next is the New Mood palette here. Lots of different ones. Is this the best launch from Beauty Bay? No, actually, I don't think it is. But there's some really interesting, unique colors in here. And I find when I use a primer, I get more pop out of these colors than I do without, which, you know, that's a given. But I feel like especially shades like this one really needed that. And even this blue, I think to get that depth that I wanted, that richness, you have to use a primer with it, which is fine. Should I hang on to this? I'm going to say maybe. I'm going to put this in the keep pile for now, but I don't think that this would survive the next round of declutters. I don't think it will. But I do think it's fun. It's different. This color, oh, I love that color. It's unique, you know, but yeah, that one may not survive the next declutter, but it is going to survive this one. So, and last but not least, oh no, I have a few more. Okay. This is the Midnight palette. This is gigantic, way too big. Way too big. I should have gotten the 16 pan, but I got greedy. I got greedy for the blues, and I wanted the whole thing. This is too big to be functional, but yet I still reach for it. Do I reach for it a lot? No, I don't reach for it a lot. I like more curated color stories. But again, I use this, like Earthy, I use this palette as an excuse not to buy a lot of other palettes. So for that reason, we're going to hang on to it. Could I get rid of it? Yes, I could. But you know, it's fine. Oh, I just keep bumping it. My phone's plugged into charge because it was dying and it was necessary. So next we have the Fiery palette here. I was kind of on the fence about keeping this. I think I might actually declutter this. So I got this originally because this specific terracotta, brightish orange was calling to me. It was this color specifically was calling to me. And then this like yellowy kind of orange. I do think that the mattes in this perform well. I don't think the shimmers in this, they're not that newer Beauty Bay formula that's like luminous and bright and metallic. These are not that. These are more subtle. They're, see, they're just kind of a standard shimmer. They're not anything like, see, they're fine, but they're just not special. And I am a spoiled little bitch now. So we're going to get rid of this. So how many have we decluttered so far? I think we've decluttered 8. We've decluttered 8 so far. So it's good. All right. And last but not least from Beauty Bay is the Berries palette. So again, I use this palette as an excuse not to buy a lot of different color stories. This palette, I think when I bought it was like $14. And yeah, if I need a pink, especially like this kind of a tone, I still do reach for this palette. Not as much as I probably could, but I do like it. Pink is one of those eyeshadow colors that always ends up in a collection. Like it always ends up making its rounds in my collection again. And I do use it, but I don't reach for it a lot. Okay, I'm going to put some of these palettes away, and then we're going to move on to the next brand. And I think the next brand is Beauty Moon. Okay, so the next one is actually not. Is it Beauty Moon? It is. Okay, so this is the Beauté palette by Beauty Moon Cosmetics. I got this in an ice cream beauty box, and while there are some shades in here that I think are really cool, like this particular shifty one, the mattes did perform beautifully, beautifully, but this is not a color story that I reach for a lot. So this actually is going to be one that I pass on. So this particular shade is just really pretty. There's something about greens. If you know me, there's just something about the greens. See? Oh, see, I just want to keep that one shade. You know, I don't know. See how sparkly? God, it's the sparkles that get me. But anyway, it performed beautifully. I'm just not going to hang on to it. It gets lost in my collection. It's just kind of an outlier, so it can go away. All right, next we're going to do Bella Beauté, not Bella Beauté Bar, Bella Beauty Bar. So I have, do I only have 3? I guess I only have 3 from Bella Beauté Bar. So we're going to start with Basic Witch. I coveted this palette. When I tell you, I stalked this palette and I stalked it, and then I was like, no, I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to try. And then I got it. And then I was like, fuck yes. And then do I touch it as much as it deserves to be touched? I don't touch it as much as it. But you know what? This bitch is going to be around all spooky season. This is going to be a go-to because look at it. Look at it. It's real pretty. So of course I'm going to keep it. Duh. But yeah, she's sexy. She's sexy. And this is one I actually won. This is actually one that I won as a giveaway on their site. And this is the Recently De-Influenced. Very pretty. It's a very pretty palette. One of these creased on me, and I can't remember which shade it was, but one of them creased on me. But yeah, especially like this combination. I would think it was this one and this one just together, those 2 shades. Ooh, sexy. And then like these 3. Now, this was around the time that Basic Witch came out as well. And this was one of those things where I was kind of like, if I had to choose between the 2, which of these would I buy? And Basic Witch was it. And then this one, and then I ended up winning this one. So it worked out. But, or did I win this first? And then I bought that. I don't remember. They were around the same time. So, yeah, very pretty. That was their Halloween launch. I think it was last year. I think that was last year. Okay, and then probably my favorite one that I've had from them so far, from Bella Beauté Bar, and that is the Secret Garden palette. This palette is real pretty. These pans are also magnetic. You can remove them and mix and match and do all of the things, but like greens and pinks. And here's the deal. If you want to make me buy your palette, put something like this in it. Yeah, just put something like that in it. Watch. We're going to do that on the side. Whoop, whoop. Do you see? Do you see? That's how they get me. Witchcraft. That's how they get me. It's witchcraft. That's not what I said. Okay. All right, let's move on to the next brand. And that is going to be BH Cosmetics. I do have 2 from them. This is the Los Angeles palette. I have given this palette good videos. I've got some good dips. I did think about panning this palette just because the shades in here they're really good for me. It lacks depth, for sure. This lacks depth, and I think it's really pretty regardless, and I'm going to hang on to this one. I do think I'm going to discontinue the next one, or which one? Yeah, I'm going to discontinue this one. This is Tokyo by BH Cosmetics. I bought these from like TJ Maxx or Marshalls. They were well discontinued, like well past being discontinued when I bought them. And this one, it's pretty. It reminds me a lot of the Kylav. I think it was the Impressionist palette. It's a pretty palette. I just don't give it the use that it deserves. And these shimmers are fine. For the money, they're fine. But I just don't think that I'm going to hang on to it. So this one can go away. Okay, I think Blend Bunny is next. And I think we're almost done with the bees. So the first one I have here on the table is the Trove palette. This is that multi-chrome quad that they came out with when they came out with Lure, I think it was. Very pretty, mostly like black based. Multi-chromes, like you just touch it. Do you see? Oh my God, this is, eyeshadow makes my heart happy. Just, oh my God. Oh my God, I can't believe it. Oh my God. Okay, so anyway, gorge. Hanging on to this, expensive. Very expensive. Multi-chromes are expensive in general. But This is a lot. This is an investment for me. I still use the code. Always use a code. Always. Okay, next is the Sugar and Grunge palette. Now this was discontinued because some asshat claimed that they owned the rights to grunge. And it's a commonly used word. Somebody, I don't know if they gave them the trademark or what. They threatened to sue Blend Bunny, so Blend Bunny discontinued this palette. But they would have had a case in court where they would have won the rights to use the word grunge. On principle, I feel like they should have done it. I would have contributed to that crowdfunding because that kind of shit should be illegal. And you know, the courts would find that it is, but people can sue you for anything. So, in the US anyway. So Maggie chose not to fight it, but I was so disappointed and angry. I understand why, I get it, but on principle, damn it. Beautiful color story. She said she might bring this back at some point with a different name. I think she should do Sugar and then GR and then star, star, star with the middle finger. That's what I would do. But in any case, it's a very pretty color story. I'm going to hang on to it. My Blend Bunny palettes, I love them. Okay, all done up. Probably my favorite neutral kind of color story. These are colorful neutrals. This is my ish. These are my neutrals. Very, very pretty. Love them. Gonna hang on to this. This palette's 36 bucks. If you're gonna buy one Blend Bunny palette and you're like afraid of color, I think that palette is your friend. Okay, Lunar. Lunar bin, it released with fanfare. It is a beautiful palette. It's gorgeous. At the time, I don't think there was anything really out there that was like this. Very pretty. This shade especially is a pearl. I wore this the other day all over the place. Yeah, we'll just do that. Right? Now, a lot of people used to complain about Blend Bunny's shimmer formula. I guess in their first launch, Surge? You know, they were fine. I think they're fine. The newer ones are spectacular, but the older ones they're fine. So that's here. This is Primal. This is also discontinued. I bought this for half off, and I ain't mad. As you can see, I have dipped into it quite a bit. Very pretty color story. It felt a little repetitive at the time that it came out. There's a lot like it at the time, and I was just kind of like, yeah, I don't need that, but I ended up getting it because it was very cheap. It was cheap. So, and then Surge. Now, Surge has since been discontinued and come back and discontinued and come back, and that's because these neons got hard to source. But yeah, it's I use this a lot if I'm doing like Halloween makeup or a character makeup. Because it gives me those really interesting like tones and shading tones and blending tones, all of that. And I think this is my last Blend Bunny palette as well. So this is the Machina palette. This is a more modern one, and this has since been discontinued as well. This shade right here, is it this one? Yeah. This one is that like holographic robot. Look at it. It's like you see how blinding that is? When Euphoria came out and everyone was like, what the fuck? Like the makeup, like this kind of a color, like that holographic, cyborg makeup. We're living in the future. All right, so that is it for the letter B. We're gonna move on to the letter C. So, excuse me. All right, so see, I think the first one, if we're going in alphabetical order, is Cosmic? Yeah, Chantico. I think, is there any other C? I think this is it for the C's. I don't have a lot of C's. So this is Chantico Beauty here. This is the Hearth palette. It's a beautiful color story. I actually think I might hang on to this for just a little while longer. I got this in the Ice Cream Beauty box, and it is real pretty, and I've enjoyed using it. The mattes performed beautifully. These mattes were beautiful. Kind of weird tones, like, together. But I still like it. And I'm not willing to get rid of it just yet. It is an outlier in my collection too, but yeah, it's just pretty. I just like it a lot. So I'm gonna hang on to it. I was really on the fence about that one. That was a maybe when I started putting everything on the desk. And now I'm like, ooh, no, I don't want to get rid of it. I can show you this one, I guess. I'll show you. So Cleona came out with bundles a while back, and they packaged them as like a palette kind of a thing. That's what this is. I'm not getting rid of this either, but these are actually technically stained. I know it's a disordered, but I can never remember what they're called, and I always pick them up out of there to try to figure it out. This was their Halloween, like, curated things that they put together, shades that they put together last year. Very pretty. Obviously, I'm hanging on to it because it's Cleona. And Cleona, they make you sacrifice your firstborn child. I don't know if you knew that or not, but, you know, or your whole wallet. Okay. So let's talk about Cosmic brushes. Cosmic Beauty, formerly Cosmic Brushes. They have changed their name. So let's talk about the Muse palette here. This color story is just, well, you can see. I think the way they do their packaging is also really tasteful. It's not overwhelming. It's not just solid, like harsh black or like bright white. They always go in with like really interesting colors. I appreciate that about them. There's always a couple of special shades, and it's a beautiful formula, and it's not that expensive. It is way more expensive than it used to be, though. I think when I first bought the next palette, the Serenity palette, it was only like 20-something, and then these are now 40, or just about 40. And speaking of Serenity, this is the Serenity palette here. This was the palette that looped me in. It stole my heart. Still gorgeous. I still reach for this one a good amount, especially when I'm not, just look at it. Ah! We gotta touch all the shades, right? Oh, just, gorgeous. Everyone should have a Serenity palette. This was their Delicious Delights palette. This was their winter launch a couple of years ago. And then I didn't buy it right away, but I did get it on the restock afterward. Pretty. Don't reach for this as often as I probably could, but yeah, that's that. This 20 pan palette format, it is one of my favorites. I think the ideal spot, like the ideal number of pans is like 15 to 20. I think that's like, you know. Okay, so this is one I would consider decluttering. I'm kind of on the fence about it. So this is their first palette. I bought it well after. But this is the Royal Rose palette. This is like the big sister to these other palettes. The only reason I think I haven't decluttered it is for this shade here, Tiffany. It's not particularly unique in my collection, but you know, I think I could get rid of this actually. The collector in me wants to hang on to it, but I don't really feel like that's necessary. So I think I'm gonna get rid of it. I think I'm ready actually. So let's declutter this one. I think I'm ready. It's older as well. So it's just kind of like check, you know, checking all the boxes. All right, the next one is one of their newer palettes. I don't even know if I've used it yet. Maybe once. This is the Culturals palette. So they released 2 palettes at once, which I'm not a fan of. I really don't like it when brands do that. Give me one at a time, please. Let me adjust, and then we'll talk about it. I got to really pep talk my wallet. This is a Culturals palette. It is a cool neutral palette, if in case that didn't like register, you know, but very pretty. I will be using this more. I will be filming with this at some point. I just am not there yet. And last but not least, this is the Nude Trulls palette. It is a very pretty neutral color story. Little pops of colors. Yeah, very pretty. Very interesting, I think, in terms of a nude palette or a neutral palette. But yeah, I like it. And I'm going to hang on to it. Okay. Is that it for the C's? I think that's it for the C's. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the D's. So also not a lot of D palettes, but we're gonna start with DD Signature, and we're gonna start with this quad here. This is a Taste of Guava, and that's here, a little like quad. I really was drawn to this color specifically. It's very pretty. I don't know if I'm gonna hang on to this quad though well, look at it though. Maybe I'll put this in my, I don't need to put this in my, I'm going to get rid of it. I'm going to declutter this. Okay. Okay. Here's why. I don't love quads. I bought it on a whim when I was purchasing another palette, and I really like DD's Signature. Like, I like their format. I like their color stories. I like their palettes. I don't love the quad. It's missing something for me, and I don't want to have to keep bouncing back and forth palettes in order to create the look that I want. So, all right. Next is the Ultimate Cappuccino palette. Absolutely gorgeous palette. It really is a beautiful palette. It's mostly neutrals with little pops. It's really beautiful. The quality is really nice as well. So yeah, love. All right, now I also have their classic autumn palette here. Bought this towards the end. I don't even know if I've used this yet. This should be in my shame pile. This one should be in my shame pile for sure. I don't think I've used it yet. It restocked and I was like, I'm gonna get this while I'm buying this other palette on the restock. And yeah, I haven't even used it yet. This should be in my shame pile. Okay. Probably my favorite palette from the DD Signature is the Blooming Basket palette. These mattes are so beautiful on the eye. The shimmers are luminous and they're vibrant and they're pretty. Like, they just did a really good job with this palette. And this was the palette I tried first that led to the other ones. Like, they got me. They got me. Okay, next, I think, oh, I missed a C. We'll go back to it. I missed my one ColourPop palette. You guys are probably going to die when I show you that. Okay, let's finish D and then we'll go back to the miscellaneous one. All right, so the last D brand palette that I have, this is not D brand as in the brand is a D rating. I mean as in, yeah. So this is Gloomy Gardens by Diveroon Cosmetics. Very pretty. They're an indie brand. This is Monica Jones is the creator of this brand. Such a pretty color story, really pretty shimmers. Yeah, I'm not done with this palette yet, and I'm going to hang on to it. I am tracking usage on this palette because I haven't seen anyone hit pan in these, so I'm curious how long it's going to take. Yeah, it's a beautiful color story, so I'm going to hang on to it. This might make some people in their hearts die a little bit, but this is the At Forest Sight palette by Raw Beauty Christie. This is the palette that had me buy ColourPop for the first time. I didn't even know who Raw Beauty Christie was, but I saw the color story and I was like, yes, that is beautiful. I'm actually going to declutter this. For ColourPop, the quality is fine. I think it's fine. I love the color story, but there's just something about how the shimmers perform that I don't love. I think the mattes are fine, but they're not spectacular. And yeah, I think it's pretty, but it's not worth me hanging on to anymore, especially since I think Lunar Beauty did it better. They didn't do it first, but I do think they did it better. So I'm going to declutter that one. And it's also old. It is old. It's several years old now. Okay. I think that's it for the D's, right? Do I have any E's? Yes. Okay, let's do my Ensley Rain palettes. I am going to declutter one. So let's start with the Ensley Rain palettes, and then I'm going to have to go pick up my daughter. All right, so I have two new palettes from them. I have not filmed with them yet. They just came in the mail. So this is the Flutter palette. Here. Oh my gosh, I have to dig everything out. So they came out with two palettes, smaller formats the other day. Well, a month ago, less than a month ago. This is the Flutter palette. Very pretty. It reminds me of like a smaller version of their Flower Moon palette. Actually, I have that one. I want to look. Hold on. Let me look at. Let's put them side by side, shall we? Which one's this one? Flower Moon? Let's put them side by side. I'm curious. It just reminds me of it, but okay. This is Flower Moon. Don't mind my dirty desk. Do we see similarities? I actually think they're more different than I thought they were. They're more different than I thought they were. Well, that's good for me. I love my Ensley Rain palettes. I think they're worth the money. People bitch about them, but I think they're worth the money. Yeah, this is the Flower Moon palette. Or Flutter palette, excuse me. Flutter. Not Flower Moon. Flutter. So yeah, I will be using this soon. I keep saying that, but I'm like, yes, I will use it soon. Let me justify my hoarding tendencies. And next we have the Flourish palette here. I'm just opening it up. So the Flourish palette came out the same time as the Flutter palette. Very pretty. It is AI artwork. Some people hate that. I understand, but it is what it is. Right here. Very, very pretty, bright color story. So, gonna play with it. Gonna probably film with it. And yeah. So that is the Flourish palette. So next we have the Flower Moon palette. I think this is since discontinued, or they brought it back with a different mattes, I think. My friend Tony actually sent this to me, and yeah, It's so pretty. It's so pretty. It caught a lot of slack because some of these shades are similar. They are similar on the eye as well. But I do think it's really pretty. And yeah, I was tempted by the new one because the mattes are different. And I was like, no, don't do it. You don't need to. All right, this is probably one of my favorite palettes in my collection. If we're talking about like neutrals, like cool, like bridal type makeup, this palette. Yeah. Yeah. This is the Cold Moon palette. Just very pretty. Like, their shimmers are superior. They really are. I say what I said. I do actually have a code with Ensley Rain. It's Garden, Garden. But yeah, I've really enjoyed, this is a Groovy Garden, by the way. I've really enjoyed the palettes. So you do notice in like some of these other palettes that you end up with 2 rows of mattes, 1 row of special shimmers. But yeah, pretty. This one reminds me, like the mushy vibes are real. There was another palette that came out around the same time that had similar type vibe. But yeah, that was Groovy Garden. And in case you didn't know, I am keeping, these are the ones that I'm keeping. I am gonna, not this one, but the next one is gonna be a declutter. So this is Harvest Moon. This was their fall one year before last. Very pretty. This orange shimmer, that's what got me, is that like almost highlighter orange, pumpkin orange shimmer. That got me. And this yellow orange, because look at it. The yellow, oh my God, I'm gonna run out of room. Look at it. Whoop, 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 whoop. Yep. And this one has a lot of depth, which is nice. I do think that these tones are kind of similar to what's in Groovy Garden. But yeah, beautiful. I like it a lot. I will be hanging on to it. I've not used it as much as I probably should to justify the price, but like I said, I'm a collector and I use my makeup, so I don't put those expectations on myself. I enjoy them in their presence. So next one is going to be one that I declutter because I do have the updated version of this. This is the Cosmic Dreamer palette. This is the original one. So very dark, almost one note, like kind of gray. I got it because this one and this one, again, with the greens, you know, it's good stuff. So yeah. And I was really happy when they came out with the new one, they actually kept that green. Let me show you the updated version. I'm going to go ahead and declutter the older version because I have the newer version and I like the newer version better. So the newer version is here and it is the Cosmic Dreamer palette as well. They did reuse the same kind of artwork on the front, but gave it like an upgraded background. So this is the newer version. I like this worlds better than the original one. They also updated the shimmers from the old ones, so you still get the same kind of depth. I've been using, which one? This one a lot with this shade in the crease, and then this like antique gold. And I know that sounds like kind of weird, but it makes the most beautiful like antique gold, like smoky eye. It really is pretty. And I think, which one was I using? And this one and the outer corner. But yeah, absolutely gorgeous. I wasn't going to get this at first, and then I caved because I am weak for sparkles, and I will be the first person to admit that. I do think the star mirror is kind of useless, but it's pretty. Like aesthetically, it's pretty, but like it's kind of useless. Okay, my favorite palette from Ensley Rain is actually this one. This is the Twisted Tea Party. I actually have the sleeve still on this one because it is my favorite. So Mad Hatter artwork, very like kind of crazy man. And then here is the color story. And I don't know why, but I just love this so much. And it performs really, really well. Yeah, this is my favorite color story from Ensley Rain. Yep, so far, so far. You know, because it could change. But like, so far, that's it, you know? All right. Last but not least for Ensley Rain, we do have the Lands of Enchantment palette. I think this was what their winter launch last year. Might have been year before, but I think it was last year. Gorgeous. There were a bunch of palettes that came out that had similar type vibes, those cool tones, purples, blues, spectacular sparkles. So yeah, these do look similar in the pan. On the eye, this one does look a little bit deeper. But yeah, This one's like more seafoam. Like, which one's more seafoam? This one's more like seafoam, like light. I use this on the inner corner. But yeah, pretty pretties. I feel like this format, it probably could have been edited down just a little bit. This could have been a 16 pan. But I do think it's real pretty. Okay, so that is it for the ease. Let me put some stuff away. I gotta go get my little from school, and then we are gonna pick this right back up. And we're back. I'm tomato faced because it's like 100 degrees outside. So we left off with E's. So we don't have any F's, so let's move to G. So first in the G category I have is Game Beauty. This is the Elemental Blast palette. It's a purple multichrome palette, or not multichrome, but like purple, a couple of them are, but very pretty, good quality. I like the shadows. I'm gonna hang on to it. There's something about the hexagonal pans that I really like aesthetically. It's interesting. I like it. Okay, so the next one is the newest, I guess, Give Me Glow, well, one of the newest Give Me Glow palettes, and that is here. This is the Mystical Garden palette. I did do a video with this. I've used this a lot more than it deserves because of the quality. I'm actually going to declutter this. I wanted this to be so good. I wanted this to be good. I did. And it just wasn't for me. And I'm going to declutter it. Yeah, which is disappointing. And the packaging, look at this. The freaking thing's coming off. What the hell? Now this very pretty packaging. I love the packaging. And it's thicker and it's very pretty, but it just didn't do it for me, and that's disappointing. So I am going to declutter this and we'll just move it along. If it's not serving me, it doesn't need to be here. So, okay. Next is the Vintage Rose palette by Give Me Glow as well. You know, I bought a replacement of this because mine got like squished, it got broken. And I used to use this palette a lot. I used it so much. But you know what? I really just don't reach for it anymore. There are other tones that I like better. And I have the Secret Garden palette in my collection now, and those shimmers are more sparkly and the mattes are better. So I'm gonna get rid of this. We're gonna declutter that. This was like one of the first palettes that I got into. Give Me Glow was one of those brands that when I first started using indie shadows, they were like one of the first that I went for, and it's like the end of an era almost. But you know what? Indie brands have really stepped their games up. The formulas are changing and for the better. So I'm just gonna, I'm moving along what no longer serves. Okay, next is the Vivid Rose palette. This is when their palettes were even bigger. They have now switched to smaller formats, by the way. So I just want this shade. Out of this whole palette, I hung on to this palette for that shade last time. It's just a very pretty soft pink. Oh God, look at it though. I feel like that's what always gets me. Like, I don't want to use it except for that pink. Can I take it out? Is it magnetic? Is it? Oh, it's magnetic. Oh, I can take it out. I can just keep this one. I might just keep that one. But I am going to declutter the rest of the palette. I don't feel like I need to hang on to this anymore. But yeah, it's like the end of an era though. But yeah, that one shade. I just want, look at it. Yeah. Okay, so moving on to the next, and I am very tomato faced. It's like 100 degrees outside, so my car gets very, very hot, and I had to go get the littles. So, all right, next brand is Glaminatrix. This is their Nocturnal palette, and this kind of like you'll notice a trend. I really love a good swampy moment. This is no different. Yeah, this color story is really fun. I feel like these mattes are kind of dry, but they're fine. They work really well. They layer up fine and they have good staying power. One of these creased on me, I think it was this one, which is not uncommon for that kind of a color on me, but still. But like, why do I need to keep that other shade though? Look at this one. Oh, I guess I could use a different finger, huh? Let's use this finger. Let's put them side by side. Oh, see, completely different. Justifying my hoarding. This is a keep. So we just move that off to the side. And the only other I thought I had another Glaminatrix palette, but apparently I don't. And if I do, it's somewhere, but it's not here. Is the Nearly Natural palette. This is a beautiful natural neutral, like I look at this and I see like classy wedding makeup. I see everyday makeup. If I didn't have so many palettes, I could see myself panning this. And I love colorful makeup. I wear colorful makeup 5 out of 6 days. But this palette, I see, look again, another one of these. Let's put it on the other side. Oh, you see, it's just very sparkly. I don't know. Beautiful. Keeping that. They bring that back. I don't know if that's out right now. It was still available, I thought, but okay. So we're moving through the G's. We're moving on to Glamlight. I have a couple that I'm like on the fence about with Glamlight, but this palette is not one of them. This is the Hershey's milk chocolate palette. The quality of this is really good and it was not expensive. It's really good. It's beautiful. I've enjoyed every makeup look that I've created with this. I've almost worn out on this shade specifically. I've almost worn out that, and this one, the embossing even. So it's a beautiful palette. I have no complaints. This is one of the ones that I'm considering decluttering. This is the Michaela. This is the part 2 collection. And this is a smaller, this is a 10 pan palette. Very pretty. The only reason I would consider keeping it is because of this green right here. So this foresty green on its own. See, do you see my conundrum? But let's look at the big one. Let's look at the big palette. Let's see if that shade is in the big palette or a similar type shade. So here's the deal. Is that the same shade or is this the same shade? So that one's called, let's see, this is called January 23rd. And it's really similar. It's really similar to Grateful, which is this one. Let's put them side by side. Oh, are they the same? Oh no, tonally they're different. This is a different tone. So that's why I'm considering keeping it, is only for, well, I don't know. I'm definitely keeping the big version. So I'm going to keep the big version. I did a brutal declutter a few years ago. And so I'm not looking to do it that deep of a declutter. Like I really purged my collection a couple years ago when I started my channel. But I'm going to hang on. This is going to be in the maybe pile. This is one of those that I may end up decluttering later on. But I'm going to hang on to it for now because my hoarding tendencies say, keep it, love it. You know, but like, do I use it? Not as often as it deserves. Okay. Last Glamlight palette in here is the Barbie palette. Now this palette has some leakage happening. And I do have some hard pans forming. This palette came out a few years ago. This actually came out before the Barbie movie. Significantly before the Barbie movie. And while it's a beautiful palette, while I've enjoyed it and I've used it, you can see some good dips. I'm actually going to declutter this. So it's older, and then I don't know if you can see or not, but there is some seepage happening with a couple of the shades. And where is that? Yeah, this shade has seepage. This shade has seepage. Yeah, I don't know. The hoarder in me wants to keep it just a little. Just keep it. Okay, I'll keep it for now. For now. It's on borrowed time though. Maybe I'll get like 3 or 4 more looks out of it and then I'll move it along to the trash can because this is old. It is old. Okay. I know that was a really roundabout thing, but I was trying to justify it to myself because I do want to keep it, but it is older, but I want to keep it. So I'm going to keep it. That's what I do. All right, next we're going to move on to Gourmande Girls. So first off, we have the Nightshade palette here. Now, this is one of the palettes. Gourmande Girls has collabed pretty regularly with Doodles by the Bunny, who is a designer and a creator. So they've collabed several times now. And Doodles by the Bunny does the artwork, and then they work together on the color story. And I like, there are certain shades in here that I love. Some that I'm like, like the grays, I'm like, But this shade is unique in my collection. So this is called Flowering, this yellow. Just look at it. It's unique in my collection. It's yellow, but still green. Like it's yellow, but a little green, but a little neon yellow, reflective. It's a really interesting shade and it is unique in my collection. I think these might be magnetic. If so, this would be a good candidate for me stripping this and grabbing what I want out of it to make a custom palette. But it is beautiful. So I'm going to keep that. All right, next we have the Warriors Wear Peak. Now, I did get this in the Ice Cream Beauty box. I got this instead of the Saint Angel Center because I don't want to support that brand. And so I emailed them and asked if I could have a different palette, maybe an older palette instead. And they gave me a few options, and this is one I picked. So this is the one that Gourmande Girls, they collabed with a creator, and I'm sorry, I am blanking on, it's dedicated to Syria Orvayo and Susie B. To create this for her. I guess like she was going through breast cancer for a while, and this is meant to like help raise funds for her treatment. And it's a very pretty, very Valentine's almost color story. It's super pretty, and I've enjoyed having it. And the Ice Cream Beauty box it's $25 a month. So I got a palette, this palette specifically, but I also got like other stuff. So I'm not mad to have that in my collection. All right, another Ice Cream Beauty one actually is the Secret Grove palette here. So this was very cottagecore vibe, like the mushies. It's definitely my vibe. And here's the color story. It's very pretty. Here we go. It reminds me of the Chantica one actually. Do I need to keep both? I think I'm for sure gonna keep this one. Maybe I will do a side-by-side look and see which one I like the tones better on the eye, and go from there. Maybe I'll do one of those type videos where I do one eye with one palette and one with the other, because they are similar. They're not the same, but they're similar. Yeah, it's a really pretty palette. I'm gonna hang on to it. So, all right, so Steph's Beauty Stash collaborated with Gourmande Girls as well, and Doodles by the Bunny to create the Nueva Vida palette. So here we go. Gorge. Tropical Summer. This is a rave palette in my face, like on my eyes. Like I put this on and I'm like, You know, we got the house music going. Very pretty, very sparkly. I like it. Okay, and the last Gourmande Girls palette that I have right now is the Peach Perfect palette. I did order their new palette because I can. So this is also a Doodles by the Bunny collaboration, and look at it. I love this format. I like this format way better than the long 14 pans or 12 pans, whatever they are. I like this format, the shape for palette storage and all of that way better. Super pretty. Keep. Okay, I think that's it for the G brand palettes. So we're gonna move to H. I only have one H palette, and that is the Huda Beauty Retrograde palette. Do you remember this? Do you remember how this took the internet by storm? Because I do, and Pepperidge Farm remembers. But yeah, I hung on to this palette for a really long time, and there's something about this packaging I don't want to declutter, because just because of the packaging. I think it's beautiful, but I am going to declutter it. It's older, for one thing. I never reach for it. And, you know, every time I use it, I'm just wishing that there was something more. And I'm not sure what that more is. If it's more sparkle from the shimmers, if it's more blendability from the mattes, or more pigmentation from the mattes. But every time I use this, I just want a little more. So I know this was a lot of people's favorites, but I am going to actually move this along. The hoarder in me wants to keep it because of the packaging. It's a beautiful, like, it feels luxurious in your hands, but that's not a reason for me to keep it. So, all right, moving on to Itell Cosmetics. I feel like I'm missing an Itell Cosmetics. Let's run through the list. I am missing one. Okay, well, we'll have to look around for it. It's here somewhere. I am. Where is that? Is that in my luggage? Where is it? Hold, please. Okay. I could have sworn I had another Itell palette, but I can't seem to find it. So I don't know if I bought it. I thought I did. I don't know. I'll have to look through my history, but I can't seem to find it. So the first one from Itell is the Break the Rules palette. This is a 9-pan all shimmer palette. I should declutter this. I'm going to declutter this. I don't reach for this. Every so often I'll want a shade, and really it's like this silvery kind of shade that I want. But yeah, look, are we noticing a pattern? Look, there's another similar pink. Should we put this next to the others? Oh yeah, see? Oh, but look at it though. It's so smooth. It's so sparkly. See, This is how they get me. I am going to declutter this. I don't need to hang on to this. I don't think I need it. But look at it though. Look, it's so reflective. Oh, it's really pretty. No, okay, nope, tuck yourself out of it. Yeah, I think I can let it go. I can let it go. We're gonna do that. I love Itell. I really like their quality. Their Cool Summer palette, which is right here, was actually the first palette that I bought from them. And it's a very pretty, clearly I have a type. Gorgeous. I really enjoy the mattes in this palette. I really enjoy the shimmers. I know some people were like, the quality is kind of mid. I did not have that experience. The only thing that I will say for this palette is that it lacks depth. It needs a deeper shade. Maybe replace one of these blues, maybe this one, with like a deeper shade, and it would have been just aces and eights. Maybe a black shade and it would have been perfect. So really enjoyed. Maybe, you know, some people didn't like it. I did, but we're gonna keep that. My favorite palette from the brand is actually this one. This is Pixie Grove, and this came out last year, year before last, something like that. Gorgeous. I really enjoy it. Really nice mix of like highlight shades and also deeper shades, mid-tones, swampy, grungy, foresty core. I like it. I like it. So, yeah, so I'm going to hang on to Pixie Grove from Itell as well. Okay, so we've moved through HI. We don't have any J's, so let's move to the K's. So I do have two from, some of you are going to probably cringe. Okay, so I have the Kaleidos Flower Punk palette. This palette took the internet by storm, and I apologize if you can hear my air conditioning, but friends, it is simply too hot. I understand if it's loud. I'm sorry for you headphone users, but anyway, this palette took the internet by storm. Fucking gorgeous. I love the color story. I love the pan shape. I like it way better than, like, it's better than Melts in my opinion. It's a little bit wider and a little bit shorter, but yeah, I really like this pan size. I have almost hit pan in this shade. This color story sparked so much love in me, but this is starting to get old. Like it does not perform as well as it used to. I can definitely tell a difference in performance. I'm going to declutter it. I know it's like the end of an era. Back when Kaleidos actually did colorful eyeshadow palettes and not mediocre quads. Because I said what I said. So, R.I.P. Kaleidos. Maybe one day you'll get your shit together. Okay. The next one is Clarity Cosmetics. This is So Amazing. This is actually a freebie. And while I think the shimmers are pretty, because the shimmers are pretty, it's like they're very sparkly. Look, I'll put that there. See that? Oh god, the shimmers are really pretty. The shimmers are the only reason I kept this palette. The mattes are garbage. These have no pigmentation. It's like putting white on your eye with very slightly different tones. But the shimmers are very, very pretty in this palette. I'm tempted to keep it just for the shimmers. I'm not gonna lie to you. But again, like, can I take these out? Are they magnetic? They are magnetic. So I wonder if I could take the Give Me Glow shimmers that I like out and fit them in. They're the same size pan. So maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll customize this and remove these shades and then just populate it with the Give Me Glow shimmers that I enjoy from those palettes, and keep those. And just keep the shimmers. Now, I remember this one creased on me pretty bad, but it's so shiny. They really are shiny. Now, they have reformulated. I have not tried their new formulation, so don't come at me, bro, if you love it. But the shimmers are very pretty from Clarity, but I don't like the mattes at all. Like, they really didn't do anything on my eyes. So even with the white base, it was so subtle it wasn't worth it. Okay, so we have moved through the K's. Let's go to the L's. H-I-J-K-L. So we have several here. I'm going to move that Clarity one off to the side because I am going to populate the shades that I want. So the first one is this one by Ladybug Glow. This was from Ice Cream Beauty. This is the End of the Rainbow palette. I wish I liked this more than I do. I kind of don't like this. I am going to move it along. My friend Rachel did some really beautiful eye looks with this, and I just I'm not gravitating towards this, and I'm going to get rid of it. So if it doesn't serve me, it doesn't need to be here. So it can just go that way. Okay. This one is the 2-Up palette by Lethal Cosmetics. Is it the 1-Up one or the 2-Up? Yeah, 2-Up palette. I'm going to keep this, not because of the performance, because honestly, this palette did not perform as well as the 1-Up palette, which was disappointing. For the price, I feel like this should have been spectacular, and it really wasn't, especially given you only get, what, like 10 shades? But it wasn't. It's not spectacular, but the novelty of the packaging, for me, this may end up a display piece at some point. But for now, I am going to keep it. I will still use it. I still use it like periodically. I'll mix some of the colors or whatever, but especially this one. But like, this is fine over a white base, but don't bother putting it on your eyes with that one. But I am going to keep it, but I shouldn't because the quality is not great. But, you know, it's just not worth the money, but it's nice. Like, I like it, but it's not worth it. Okay, this is the 1-Up palette. I love this palette. I could see myself panning this palette. See, this is what I was expecting from this. And to only get like almost half, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. There's 12 in this palette. There are 10 in here. So the balance is weird. Love this palette, keeping this. So, yep. Okay, this is a custom palette that only has a couple of things in it. I'm going to keep it. I didn't even realize it was in this stack, but there's just a couple of singles. These are the water activated liners. They're fine. They're not the best ever. I like them better with Duraline than I do with the Lethal mixing liquid. The Lethal mixing liquid isn't very good, but with Duraline it's fine. Okay, I don't remember what this is called. Is this the Harmony one? This was one of their pre-made palettes. I'm actually going to declutter this, but these are singles. Now this isn't their older. This is an older palette, so I'm not sure what that means for quality with them, but I have not reached for this. I might keep this purple, you know, but maybe the champagne, but I'm not going to keep this whole palette. I will probably keep the Z palette, and I might just declutter the shades. But I don't really reach for this, not in its current format anyway, but this is like, there were 2 that didn't have names on them. One was like Hummingbird and something else, and they didn't actually have names on the palettes, which I thought was frustrating. Same thing goes for this. I think I'm going to declutter this. I'm going to keep this shade, maybe this shade, but I don't need to keep the whole thing, so I am going to declutter this. I don't reach for this, and it's just not worth it for me. I am going to hang on to this one. This is a Night Flower palette. I believe that's what it's called. Very pretty. Love the purples. Like, it's funny when you compare this to more modern purples, like other brand purples, this does not look as like special or anything like that, but this is a special palette. I like it a lot. I don't know. They've changed so much over the years that it's kind of hard to know like how, I don't know how I feel about it, honestly. This is a custom palette. So this is the color story that I built, for me, that I like. So yeah, and I wrote down the colors somewhere, but yep. So maybe I'll interchange some of these. Some of these look like duplicates that I have in other palettes, but I have a hard time keeping track of Lethal because they're like single and build your own palettes, all of that. It's like, I have a hard time like focusing on it, you know? Okay. I don't think this is another build your palette. I think this was another like pre-made. This does serve as a Z palette though, so I may do the same thing and keep the shades I want and then just use one of these as a thing. But I'm going to put this in the declutter pile because I'm not planning to keep it. I'm going to keep the Z palette, but the shades inside are a no-go. Okay, next we're going to move on to Lois Cosmetics. So remember, we are still trying to move alphabetically. I'm trying. All right, Lois Cosmetics, this is the Rose Metal palette. Man, I loved this palette, especially when it first came out. It's very neutral compared to what I normally use. I am going to declutter this. I don't reach for this anymore. I've had it for a long time, and I think it's just time to move it out. Okay, meet me at midnight. Oh, Lois. I'm going to move this along. My favorite palette format. Love this color. Love this color. I don't think it comes out, though. This one's called Phase. Yeah, it doesn't come out. I'd have to do surgery on it, but love the color. I use this palette a lot. I'm gonna move it along. It's time. It's time. Has anybody heard from Lois? Is she doing okay? I have not seen any content from Lois Cosmetics in a hot minute. I might have to go stalk their Instagram and see what's up. All right, this palette, man, y'all, the internet loved this palette. This is the Meet Me in the Underworld palette. It is very pretty. I used this palette a lot. I considered making this my panning project. I'm actually going to move this along. It's time. Again, with the pinks, I'm like, ooh, let me touch it. I'm going to move this along. So, RIP to Lois Cosmetics. Call me, girl. Call me when you do something new. Okay, so we're going to move on to the L's now. We're still in the L's, I guess. We're going to do the last of the L's, and that's Lunar Beauty. So I do have two Lunar Beauty palettes. I have this one here, which is their advent calendar. And if you remember, this was such a novel concept. Manny did an advent calendar, and each day had a different shade. And that's what this is. I think this was like the 12 days of Christmas or whatever. Yeah, 12 days of lunar, excuse me. Such an original idea, such a fun idea. Really love the colors that he picked. I thought they were interesting, and I do like the quality. I think the quality is really good on this, actually. So keep. My favorite palette from Lunar Beauty, and remember earlier when I said Raw Beauty Christie might have done it first, but Lunar Beauty did it better. I'm referring to the Moon Shroom collection. Listen, if you love RBK, I love that for you. But this is better, in my opinion. The slightly expanded color story, the tones, and I do like these shimmers a lot. I heard some people saying that their palettes, this was more of like an overspray, and they didn't get that luminosity with their shades after the first use. I have not had that issue. I've used this palette, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 times, and I haven't used that, but none of my shades are to the bottom of the palette either, the bottom of the pan. So I've not had that issue, but the mattes in here are beautiful, and the shimmers are very sparkly. They're not mind-altering. They're not like Divina shimmers, but they are very pretty. Look at my hand. But see, look how pretty they are. So, yeah, that's going to be a keep. All right, so moving into the M's. Only a few. Let's see. We have... Okay, so we have, first off, we have the MBA, My Beauty Addiction Cosmetics. This is their Pumpkin Kisses Autumn Wishes. When I tell you I stalked this palette for I ended up buying it in I don't know, July. No, not July. May, June, somewhere in there. Because I was like, okay, I finally want this. I do want this. And then I was very disappointed. I know I was really hoping that this orange would just be it's just not, they're not very bright. They're not very luminous. They're okay shimmers. I don't feel like this is all that in a bag of potato chips, especially for the price. And I'm disappointed. I had high hopes for it, and I guess I don't know. I think I just had it in my head that it was something that it wasn't. And yeah, I'm going to move it along. It's not going to deter me from trying something else from them, but this palette just wasn't it for me. So, okay, moving on to Melt. So I have the Amor y Mariposas. This is the Love and Butterflies palette, that one. I actually feel like this palette is underrated. I've really enjoyed this. I've had no issues with quality. Are these shimmers the brightest in the world? No. They're not the brightest in the world, but they are beautiful, and they get the job done. And I like these mattes. I know some people said they didn't like them. I like them, and I haven't had any issues. So, plus the packaging is so cute. It really is a cute packaging. Okay, but this is going to be a keep. Something I am going to declutter, which might surprise some of you, is the Melt Gemini 2. You know, I got these. I got the Gemini 1, and I got the Gemini, and then I got the Gemini 2. And it doesn't matter how many Melt palettes that I end up getting, I just am not satisfied with the quality of any of them. I start getting hard pan, and the shimmers are not bright. They're not luminous. That's fine. They're not really known for the shimmers. I remember really liking this when I first tried it, and the more I used it, the more I just realized I just don't enjoy using this. Every time I use it, it feels like a punishment, and I don't need that from my makeup. So this came in my ice cream beauty box. This is by Moon Slice Beauty. This is called the Moon Magic palette. And while I thought that it was fine, I don't know if I'm not gonna keep this. Excuse me. I was gonna save this. I was gonna use it some more, use some more shades, experiment with it a little bit, but you know, I'm not going to. It's just okay. The quality reminds me of ColourPop. I'm not gonna keep this. I'm gonna move it along. One less thing that I have in my life that I need to deal with. Okay, so that wrapped up the M's. Let me grab the N's. So starting off with the N's, we have Natasha Denona. This is a Yucca palette. Absolutely beautiful color story. By far, this is my favorite palette from Natasha Denona so far. I have this fantasy that one day I will just like customize my palettes with her, and I never do that. But yeah, this is a keep. This is my favorite. Out of all of hers that I have, that's my favorite. Okay, next I have the Sunrise palette here. I'm going to declutter this, but I'm not going to declutter all of this. I'm going to keep this shade because that's the only one I want, and maybe this shade, like these two. I don't want to keep this, and maybe this one. I'm going to, the next few palettes, I'm actually going to take some shades out of each and keep those and then get rid of the rest because I just don't enjoy them. I don't reach for them. And so I'm just going to cherry pick the ones I want, and these two are basically it. So this one is actually going to get decluttered. And that's the Sunrise palette. And then there's the Love palette, and I'm going to do the same thing with the Love palette. This is going to go away. I'm probably going to keep this shade and maybe that shade. But the rest are going to get decluttered. Maybe I'll keep this one and this one and this one and declutter the rest. Yeah, I've held on to it for a long time. I don't reach for it, and you know, all these little side projects, like I'm just like, no, it's just time, you know? All right, this palette is the Retro palette. This was actually the first Natasha Denona palette I ever bought. And this was a panning project for me. I panned a lot of the shades. I'm going to keep a couple of the ones that I like the most out of this palette. But again, I'm going to build a custom palette using the next 4 because I don't want all of these. This is that cream to powder, it hard panned. I don't think the Yucca palette's great. I don't think the rest of them are all that great. So, in my experience. And this is a Zendo palette. I know everybody hated this product, like quality-wise. The looks that I created with this palette, I've enjoyed. Is it as good as some of the other palettes? No. But again, I'm just going to basically keep this, get rid of all this, and then put those other custom shades in. Probably in this one because I like the outside color of this one better, but it's kind of scratched up. I don't know, maybe we'll keep the retro and get rid of the rest. I don't know, but we are going to declutter 4 of those. I know they're expensive, but I've had them a long time and I don't feel like I want to hang on to them anymore. So I'm going to pillage them. They're getting pillaged. So put those in the declutter pile. All right, moving on to Nomad Cosmetics. I have a lot of Nomad. We'll make this quick. So this is the Bosque Nuboso de Monteverde. This is their Cloud Forest palette. Beautiful. Keeping. Love the colorful. This is the Paradise Islands palette. And each one of the Nomads palettes, which by the way, these two together, sweet music. These palettes all have like special themes and things like that they do. This is the Tokyo Harajuku palette, and I'm going to declutter this. So this has been in my collection for a long time. It's one of the first Nomad palettes I bought, but I'm going to move this along. I don't reach for it a lot anymore, and I do notice that I just want something else, so I'm going to move this along. Okay. All right, next we have the Fête de Provence. I'm not French. It's the Provence palette. And I think this palette is genius, and it took me a while to see it, and then I started putting it on my eyes, and I was like, oh fuck, this palette is genius. So it's very unassuming in the palette, but on the eyes, I'm just like, yes, more, yes. Okay, this is the Whistler Snow Lodge palette. Lovely. Keeping as well. And this gives me a similar type vibe to Haunted Europe. So this is Haunted Europe. This was like one of the first ones that I got. This is the one that made me go, yes, I want to buy that palette. They are going to re-release this year, and when they do, I might get an updated one. But yeah, I still enjoy, this is still one of the prettiest like sea foamy kind of shimmers in my collection. We have Okavango Safari. A lot, like these shimmers are not my favorite, but I do really like this palette still, so I am going to hang on to it. This is as close to like a neutral palette from Nomad as you're going to get, you know? Okay, we have the Royal Europe palette. Here, lovely, lovely, deeper tones. Really nice with some of the other palettes. It all plays nicely, so gorge. All right, this is one of their newer palettes. This is a New Zealand Sky Gazing palette. It's like the dark and stormy. This is like the goth sister to like, you know, Bubblegum Princess on some of the other ones. So yeah, interesting tones, a little more muted. Not like my favorite out of all of them, but I do still enjoy it, and so I'm going to hang on to it. This is the Iceland palette, basically. This is the Land of Fire and Ice. Interesting color story. Love these colors. These blues are what I gravitate towards in this palette more than these, and I bought it for these. But I gravitate more towards like these others than I do those, which is funny. But yeah, keep. The fall release from a couple of years ago is the Hudson Valley. Here, they are getting ready to come out with a new fall palette, and I still reach for it. This red is one of my favorites. It's just very pretty on the eyes. I will probably end up doing a red smoky with this like next week, probably. All right, and the Halloween launch from last year was the Ghost Town USA palette. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, Ghost Town USA. Yeah, here. These shimmers are not my favorite shimmers. They're just not. It's the nature of the shimmers. Some of these crease on me. I do like it. I still wear them, but you definitely have to wear a primer with them. They're not the kind that you can wear without. But I do really love these tones, and I created some beautiful looks with this. So I'm going to hang on to it, but it is kind of tempting to want to get rid of it. Okay, where were we? So we stopped off with Nomad. Pretty abruptly. I feel like I ran through those because I really had to go pick up my child. So let's talk about Odin's Eye next. So we're moving down the alphabet into the letter O. So I have a stack of Odin's Eye here. So let's talk about them. So first off is the Christmas Eve palette here. Or this is a Christmas palette actually. So this was their winter launch a couple years ago, and these sold out like immediately, like crazy fast. Then they re-released them and brought them back, and yeah, you can see why, right? Great color story, perfect for the season, love. And we got another orange here, so whoop, whoop, whoop. Oh yeah, I know, right? All right, so next palette is, if I didn't say, I'm keeping that, just so you know. Okay, so next palette is the Hella palette. This was my panning project palette for last year's indie palette pans. So I do have a pan in every shade, just from using it and from regularly like going for it. I think I've actually had my fill of this palette. I think I've spent enough time with it. I'm actually gonna get rid of it. Yeah, lots of pans. I'm tempted to keep it just as a reminder. I was like, yeah, you did it. You hit pan on all those, but I don't need to hang on to it for that purpose. So I think I'm just gonna, it's gonna go away. I think it's time. When I look at it, I don't want to use it. I think that's a good enough reason. Okay. The next is a collab palette between Betty Jean, and this is called the Planet Spirit palette. I didn't really get it. When this first came out, I was just kind of like, I think that's my least favorite of the three. But as time went on and I saw the looks that were created with it, whew, I was like, okay, that's pretty. I like it. And then I got the mystery box, and this was in the mystery box. So, yeah, really cute. Odin's Eye has been doing some, they periodically do collab palettes, or like a series of collab palettes, and that was in one of the mystery boxes. So I'm happy to have it in my collection. It wasn't something I was gonna buy outright, but it is something that I do enjoy having. Okay, next one is Solmon 2, And they did just release like the partner palette to this, and that's the Moon palette, the Moon Wish palette, which is also Solmon 2 Moon Wish. Beautiful. I love these colors. Yeah, it's pretty things, just pretty things all around. In terms of quality, I think this is really like the start of their better kind of quality. Hella was good. I think Hella might have started it, and then it definitely changed the older palettes that I had. I ended up decluttering because I just didn't feel like they were as good of a formula as like their more modern formula. So, okay, the next one I also got in the mystery box. I have not used this yet, and this is actually the Hummingbird palette. I was very, very surprised to get this in my mystery box because this has been discontinued for a while, and this is the one that I wanted. Out of this particular collab, I learned about Odin's Eye after this collab had happened. So after this was discontinued, after this was like no longer a thing, I learned about this, and then I wanted it because look at it. And then when I got the mystery box, I got it. So does that mean this palette is old? Probably. Do I care? I do not. I don't. I'm gonna keep it anyway. All right, and last but not least is the Christmas Eve palette. Yeah, this was the sister palette to the Christmas palette, and it's just pretty. It's pretty. It's like a little bit grungy, a little bit cool. I don't know. It's pretty. Okay, so those are the Odin's Eye palettes. I just decluttered the Hella palette. I'm not decluttering anything else. So let's move on to the Ofra palette in my collection. This is the Ofra Good to Go palette. I don't know if this was a collab palette or not. Originally, I was gonna just keep this as a highlighter, but I really don't need this. I don't actually even want it. I like their highlighters, but I find I'm just using eyeshadow lately. I've just been like using whatever shadow is in the palette to create like a cohesive, you know, highlighter moment, with the exception of a couple, but I don't need to keep this. I really don't like their eyeshadow formula. I've tried it and I've tried it and I've tried it again, and I just find it lacking. So for that purpose, this can go away. Okay, so let's talk about S next because, let's see, LMNOP, I don't have any P brand ones. QR, I don't have any R either. So I just have S. So let's start with Salem Cosmetics. I have two palettes from them. This is the, honestly, which one is this? Salem and the Witch. So Salem and the Witch. This was the first palette that I bought from them just to kind of try the brand. Here is that color story. And while I think the mattes are fine and the shimmers are fine, I don't think that this particular set of formulas is like the best. I do know that they've changed their formula since then, because the other palette that I have is actually a different formula, and they actually re-released these as this palette with their updated formula. These shimmers are really kind of lackluster. I kept this for a long time thinking that maybe I would want to customize it, put my own pans in there, but I'm really just not going to do that. So I am going to pass this on. I'm going to move it along. I just don't want to hang on to it anymore. It doesn't call me and it doesn't speak to me. So we're going to put that over there. But this palette I am going to keep, and this is the Forest Heart palette. Now this was a collab palette between Smink Baronde and Salem Cosmetics. And it's just beautiful, and you can tell the shimmers are definitely more vibrant. The mattes blend beautifully. Like, this is definitely an upgrade from Salem and the Witch. Now they did, like I say, they re-released that Salem and the Witch, but this was a limited edition collab, and I'm really grateful I have this in my collection. And plus, like, Natalie, she's great. She's just lovely. Follow her channel. It's Smink, S-M-I-N-K, Baronde, and it's like B-E-R-O-E-N-D-E. I think she's Swedish, but she creates some stunning looks. She really does. Okay, so let's move on next to Shall We Makeup. This is a C Beauty brand, relatively new to me. I haven't used this palette as much as I would like. And this is the Mist Witch palette. The aesthetic, whoever's doing their packaging, I love the packaging. This, I got the Mist Witch Mini. So this is a mini palette. Now they do have a full-size version of this palette as well with like round pans, but I opted to get the mini because I don't need a giant one. So, so far this has been fine. I've used it maybe 3 times. I don't think I've used it more than that. And it's been fine. I think this one is probably, let's see, let me show you. They're just pretty. See, when the light hits that, just pretty sparkles. And I do have a second palette from them. I'm not sure if this is their second launch or if this is, you know, and even further down the line, but this is the Wolfa palette here. Hold on, there is a cat here there. The Wolfa palette. Again, love the packaging. And this is that palette. Now, I don't normally go for 5 pans or even like 6 or 8 pans. I usually don't gravitate towards those, but there was something about this color combo that I thought was really interesting. So I opted to get it, and I want to show this one. Let's do that one. We'll do that one here. Right? I know. I think it was really the swatches that got me. The swatches will always get me, but I'm keeping both of these. Okay, next. Shroud Cosmetics, and is that spider? Oh, I really hope. When I went to pull this out earlier, there was a spider on it, and I was very unhappy about that. So this is the It's Freakin' Bats palette. This is Betty Bean or Betty Jean and Shroud Cosmetics. And while I love the color story, the mattes perform fine. I don't think they're special. If I'm going to be 100% honest, I don't think they're special, and I don't think these shimmers are very good. And nothing against the creators, but like the difference, right? Just look like, you know? So I don't think that this, as much as I love Betty Bean, I just don't love the quality of this palette in particular. So disappointing, because I had high hopes for this green, because if you guys haven't noticed by now, I have a weakness for this kind of green, and it's just okay. Like they're just okay. They're fine, but they're not like, they're like traditional shimmers, you know? And I've become a special shimmer kind of girl, so I'm gonna move this along. My God, the stack is growing. I'm gonna have to reposition here soon. We're almost done. All right, so next is the Cozy Cabin. We're moving into Simply Posh Cosmetics. This is Cozy Cabin, and this was their winter launch, I don't know, not that long ago. But if you look at it, it's like basically a 9-pan and a 9-pan. So pretty pretties. We love that journey for us. Wow, I'm special. But yeah, very pretty. Good quality. I like the quality on these. So that's good. And then one of their other more recent palettes, this is the, I don't know why I keep the sleeves on some of them, but not all of them. It's weird. This is the Aurora Lights. And this is just a cool tone, just dream. This is just very pretty. The sparkles, very pretty. Here, let me just grab this one so I can show you. Isn't this fun? We're just swatching and reminding ourselves why we like things. Just pretty sparkles. Sparkle, sparkle. Sparkle, sparkle. So the first palette that I got from Fairy Tale Fairies from Simply Posh was Fairy Tale Fairies. And it's this one. Now you're like, Liz, that's kind of similar to Aurora Lights. Well, you'd be correct, although this is lighter and that's more mid-tone. But yes, they are similar. Now, some of these shimmers hard panned, and they sent out partial refunds to deal with that issue. I have had that with this shade in particular, has been kind of an issue. Everything else has been great, but very pretty. I like it. I continue to keep it in my collection. Let's just swatch the pink one too. Keep it in my collection and play with it. So here we go. Let's just put that there. Yeah, right. Pretty pretties. Most of their shimmers are duochromes or a multi-chrome. Like very fewer other formulas. Okay, so let's move to Sinful Echoes. We're almost done with the S's. We just have a couple brands left. So Sinful Echoes, they have 2 palettes total that they've made, and I have both palettes. So Lotus Bloom was their sophomore launch, and this is the most recent. Very pretty, very sparkly. These are textured shimmers. They're not like the smoothest or most like metallic-y, but they're very pretty. Let's see, let's watch that blue one. See, they're just, you know, very sparkly. And they still hand make theirs, which is pretty cool. Like most of these indie brands that are on this table, actually they outsource theirs to a Chinese company, a Chinese manufacturer, or, you know, from wherever else. They outsource them and then they can keep up with the demand. But Sinful Echoes just started and they still make theirs. So this was their first launch, and this is the Echoes in the Darkness palette. I love the whole witchy aesthetic, the whole vibe. And this was their first launch. So a couple of these mattes were kind of like this green. I wish this green was better, but otherwise it's been a good palette. I've enjoyed using it. Like, let me swatch this one. Here, let's swatch that one. Let's just throw a matte in there for good measure, you know? Pretty things. But yeah, I like it. I'm gonna continue to use it. So, okay, one more S, and that is the Sugar Drizzle. This is the Plumeria Dragon palette. This was in my ice cream beauty box as well. Here is this palette. You know, I had high hopes for this because I've heard good things about Sugar Drizzle, and I don't think that this is all that in a bag of potato chips. I don't think these shimmers are particularly good. I think they're okay, but they're just, you know, they're okay. They're, you know, they're fine, but no, they're not like fine, you know? So we're gonna declutter this one. Okay, so we've made it through S. Let's go to T. I only have 2 palettes in the letter T. Both are from the brand Titanium Foxes, so I have both of their palettes. Again, one of those indie brands only has 2 palettes so far. Hold on. Titanium Foxes, one of those brands that only has 2 palettes so far. So their first palette was Poppy Storm, and I was very on the fence about this color story. It is very pretty. In person, it is very pretty. Let's swatch this. Oh, let's swatch the red. Okay, let's swatch. Where are we gonna put it? Let's put it here. See? Sparkle sparkles. So, anyway, very pretty. I did not pull the trigger on it until I got to the next one, and that's their sophomore launch. So their sophomore launch is called Poppy Quiet. I'm not sure what the obsession with the poppies is. If maybe they're just a really big fan of like Wizard of Oz. I don't know, but it is pretty, and the color story was very nice. I like this. I don't know why I like this so much because it only has 1 depth shade, but I like it. So let's swatch. Let's see. Should we swatch an interesting palette, like an interesting shade, like that one maybe? Let's see, we'll use this one, this finger. See, watch, it's really interesting shade. I don't know if we're at that point, right? Like, this shade is just a showstopper. It's just showstopper. Anyway, I'm keeping both of those. There's no reason for me to get rid of those because I like them. So, all right, T, let's move into the letter U. Okay, so let's move to Unearthly Cosmetics. It's the only eyeshadow set that I have that's a brand that's a U. So this is a Get Groovy palette. Now this came out with their summer launch last year, their summer box. Very pretty palette. I'm not quite ready to let this go, but I don't know if this one is going to survive my next declutter. I've made maybe 1 look with it, so I don't really have my full thoughts on it. But I do want to play with it just a little bit more, but I don't know for sure if this one is going to survive the declutter. I don't know if this will survive next year, but it is going to live to see 1 more year with me. So we have the Heather Austin Resurgence palette here. The packaging on this, by the way, the concept of this I was really confused by. It's the, we collaborated together. It wasn't just like on the creator, it was the brand and the creator were both like, yeah, we collaborated on this. But I don't know, it just felt, it's almost like they didn't believe it would be well received, so neither party wanted to take full credit. Is, just my perception of it, but that could be way off base. It's a fine palette. It's not crazy. It's a little disjointed, I think, but I have enough Unearthly palettes that that doesn't take away from it, because I can mix and match and pull in other shades, you know. So I want to swatch Beetle. Let's do Beetle, which is this confetti shade. A confetti shade's like the matte with sparkles in it. Let me show you. So it, well, and see, you can still see the sparkles, and while I think that's fine, I will say that this shade creases on me. It creases terribly. Like the black shade, most black shades will crease on me if I use a heavy hand, like I go in hard, but that one especially is like, bitch. All right, one of my favorite palettes from Unearthly is actually Lower. I have the older, larger version. You can see the color story here, and you can also see that this parallels that MBA Cosmetics, the Pumpkin Kisses Autumn Wishes. I was in like a mood. Apparently I was really drawn to that kind of color story. I still love this palette. I contemplated panning it this year, but the pans are just too big. The pans are too big. I would be doing panning. I would never make a dent. So here is the Don't Be Jelly palette. I think I won this in their giveaway on their page, actually. But it's pretty. It's very like under the sea, as the name suggests. Let's swatch Lagoon. Let's do another matte. See? Pretty. Now it does look, you see, it kind of looks a little bit patchy. It blends out fine, but yeah. This is one of those that you need a primer with for sure. Not all of the Unearthly palettes are like that. Most of them you can no problem without a primer, but that palette in particular you need a primer for. Probably one of my favorite color stories from them is Fall Magic. That is here, greens and pinks. I know, surprise, surprise, but that's real pretty. Like look at those sparkles. Oh my god, so pretty. Plus a pop of green. Fucking get out of here. You know, it's just. All right, then we have the Charmer palette. This is the one that came in their Valentine's mystery box. And pink and purple for Valentine's Day. Groundbreaking, but it is very pretty and it's functional and they do work well together. So this is really the special shade here. Lure, L-U-R-E. I don't know, I'm running out of places. Let's put it there, see? I love those like bright metallic-y shades. Gorgeous. This is a discontinued palette. This is a Vitality palette. And they're actually they split this into two different color stories and then brought them back in different ways. So, and expanded on it. So this is a Vitality palette. One of my favorite Unearthly palettes, just because it's like a true rainbow. It's not like a true rainbow. There's no bright red, but still, it's a really fun, colorful, and this palette is also the reason that I don't need to keep like that Beauty Bay Brights palette, because I have Brights in my collection. There's no, no reason to hang on to it. So, all right, we have the Hauntingly Glamorous. I think this is also discontinued. Look how gigantic these pans are. This is the old pans, and then these are the newer pans. Let me see. Do you see the difference? Ginormous. These are ginormous. So anyway, fall spooky color story. Are there some repeats in here? Yeah, some of these shades are kind of similar to the others, or in Don't Be Jelly. I don't care. I want to keep it. I want the red. That's what I want, the red. You know, just like a blood red. Okay, and last but not least from Unearthly, we have the Spring Magic palette. And clearly I have a type. Are we seeing a pattern here? Do I care that I have repeat shades in my collection? No, I do not. I don't care. I don't care. It's mine. They're mine. They're mine. I don't care. I bought them for a reason, because I like them. Okay, we only have 2 palettes left. You made it so far. I hope you had your snacks. 2 palettes. We have Wicked Widow Beauty. So we have the Lovesick palette. Now this was an Ice Cream Beauty box as well. And it's a very pink and purple. I'm not quite ready to let this go yet. I'm on the cusp of that, I think, but I'm not quite there yet. I want to play with it a little bit more, maybe a few more uses, and then I'll decide if I want to move it out or not. But it is pretty and it has served its purpose, and I I'm glad I have gotten to use it and try it. And I feel the same way about this palette as well. This is also by Wicked Widow Beauty, and this is their Graveyard Smash. This was also an Ice Cream Beauty Box palette. This one has a really interesting colors, I think. And they perform fine together. But yeah, they're just really interesting color payoff. However, when I use these two together, which are the ones that I want to use in this palette, I look like I got punched. The undertones, especially in this color, are very much what my skin does when I get hit or when I bruise. If you want to make me look bruised, we're going to use these two colors. So maybe good for Halloween, but not for every day. I don't want an eyeshadow look where I look like I got punched in the eye. So I might end up decluttering that in the future, but not yet. And my dears, that's it for the declutter. We made it. We did. We made it. So let's see just how many palettes we decluttered. Well, I decluttered. Let me put some stuff away, and then I will put everything on the desk and I will show you. Okay, so you can see these are all of the palettes that we decluttered. There are 40 palettes here. So 40, good grief. It's a lot. Okay, so we started today with 150 palettes exactly. Not sure how that happened, but when I counted, we started with 150 because there are 110 put away in their homes and 40 sitting on my desk. Now, I did forget to talk about one palette. The Leather and Lace palette by Unearthly. Because it's stashed in a different place, I forgot about it, but it's my panning palette for this right now. So we have a total of 150 palettes. I decluttered 40 palettes. Now, this is going to give or take one palette, maybe two, depending on whether or not I choose to save those Clarity shimmers and combine the Give Me Glow shimmers. So this is give or take one or two, but I'm really glad that I got rid of things. I'm looking forward to do a build a palette using the Natasha Denona palettes and just kind of picking and choosing. So that'll be fun. But yeah, thank you for watching my declutter and for being here. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe and all that jazz. And I'm just gonna keep playing with my collection and playing with indie makeup. And yeah, I really enjoy this hobby. It's really fun for me. And, you know, I could be doing crack, but I'm not. So, you know, the world is welcome. But anyway, I love your faces, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye. And if you made it this far, will you leave me an artist brush or like a paint palette emoji in the comments below, just so I know who made it to the very end. I'm sorry if this is kind of rambly, but that's just kind of what we do around here. Okay, love your faces. Bye. I'm going to go wash off some swatches.